My name is Juan Moreno, and I work at Boulder County. And thank you all so much for having come. Of course, our executive director, Marty Moore, is in the room as well. Thank you for coming. We just wanted to thank everybody for being here and for being able to support this event. Of course, thank you to everybody who was able to put this event together. Thank you to the library for hosting this, and we're just very excited that you're all here and hope you enjoyed the food. So as we're going to get started for tonight, we have a youth panel who will be talking a little bit about mental health, Boulder County Trends Report, and the controversy of the 13 Reasons Why book, and of course the show on Netflix. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get it started.
Thank you all for being here tonight, because it shows that Longmont does care about their youth and their wellness. There. Thank you all for being here tonight, because it shows that Longmont does care about their youth and their wellness. Longmont and the Supporting Action of Mental Health Committee is hosting a no-cost adult and youth mental health trainings throughout the upcoming year. To learn more, you can visit the City of Longmont SAM page. On the youth panel today, we have Karina Orona, a senior in high school. We have Emma Sweeney, a junior in high school. We have Yasmin Renteria, an 8th grader, and we have Fernando Ibarra, a sophomore in high school. And last but not least, me, Madison Carbajal, a senior in high school. According to the World Health Organization, mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes their own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, and can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. The definition of mental health varies across individuals and culture. Culture influences mental health challenges and disorders, mental health services in many ways. 13 Reasons Why is a book which is now a video production that's available on Netflix. The show discusses Hannah's suicide. She leaves 13 tapes of 13 reasons that led to her suicide. We encourage parents and guardians to have a conversation with their teen, not only about the show, but about mental health. Later on, we will discuss the controversy of the show. Thank you. With that being said, I will pass this along to Karina.
Hi, I would like to talk about the Boulder County Trend reports that just came out, and they're also behind me. Okay, it was reported that for teens that were feeling sad or hopeless for 2 weeks, 21% were Anglo, 27% were Latino, 20% were straight, and 47% were LGBTQ. For the intentionally self-injured, 15% were Anglo, 18% were Latino, 12% were straight, and 48% were LGBTQ. For the ones who seriously considered suicide, 13% were Anglo, 15% were Latino, 12% were straight, and 37% were LGBTQ. For those who attempted suicide, 4% were Anglo, 8% were Latino, 4% were straight, and 19% were LGBTQ. I would also like to talk about the artwork that you see. This is 1, 2, and then there's one out in the hallway too. These were created by arts. The Youth Council here in Longmont held a competition for the youth, and the point was to create artwork that would prevent suicide. And these were all created by youth. These are top 3 winners. And then that's like the third one, and then the second one's outside. So with that, I would like to pass along to my peer Emma.
Individuals left behind by the suicide of a loved one tend to experience complicated grief in reaction to the loss. Symptoms of grief that may be experienced by suicide survivors include intense emotions like depression and guilt, as well as longings for the deceased, several intrusive thoughts about the lost loved one, extreme feelings of isolation and emptiness, avoiding doing things that bring back memories of the departed, new or worsened appetite or sleeping problems, and having no interest in activities that the sufferer used to enjoy. I've been through this before, many times. I've lost many friends due to suicide, and the depression is hard. I've been playing softball for about 13 years, and after hearing about my friend's death, I stopped for a couple months. It's my dream to play in college, and I stopped. I stopped doing what I love because of losing someone that I loved. After a couple months, I went back out and made some more friends. Making friends for me is hard because every friend I've had has tried to kill themselves. But a thought in my head, be friends, they need you. I listened to that thought, and I've helped 15 people in my life to stay alive. Those 15 people are my closest friends now and never try to attempt anything ever again. And I just want to remind everyone that it's not just adults going through this. We have children from the age around 12 years old that commit suicide because of bullying and other events that may occur in their lives. Adults are not the only ones going through this hard life. Just remember that. What we need from this community is support. The youth of this community needs support. Anyone can do that for anybody. Even if there's a person sitting at, say, a coffee shop, a restaurant, outside, doesn't matter. If they're sitting right across from you and you see them stressing out, talk to them. I've had this happen before. I was at dinner alone after a long, stressful day out in public. My waiter I had was the friendliest stranger I've ever met. He had his free spirit blowing around him, and he was always smiling. And never have I ever smiled so much just because of a stranger talking to me. It pushed me to help out others who looked troubled. I would talk to people and support them with what they were going through or what they were. It has changed my life, and I'm hoping others understand how little it takes to change a life just by saying hello to a single person. We need friendly spirits who are not afraid to help. That's what this community needs. I'll now pass it on to Yasmin.
Hi, I'm Yasmin. As my peer Madison mentioned before, some argue that the show really demonstrates when a person is going through depression or their path to suicide. Some controversial points are in the following. It glamorizes or makes suicide look cool. The show introduces the idea of revenge fantasy. The main character leaves behind 13 tapes, which blames 13 people in what she considers their role in her death. The show also displays the adult in a way that even specially trained adults are incapable of helping a teen in crisis, therefore discouraging a teen to seek help from adults. 13 Reasons Why is where Hannah graphically shows how she committed suicide and may give an idea to teens to successfully commit it. Some adults haven't heard of this show. However, it's a show that's being watched by thousands of youth with no follow-up. Depression, trauma is real, and suicide is not the answer. There is a hand out there that is willing to help you. Thank you. Now I'm going to pass it on to my peer, Fernando.
Hi, I'm Fernando, and I am part of the Alumni Youth Council. So now that we have discussed 13 reasons why, and the controversy behind it, at the beginning of the event we asked people to write a reason why not someone should commit suicide. I will go ahead and read a couple of the reasons that everyone came up with. God, concerts, seek in your future, everyone has a great potential, find a solution to short-term problems, my friends and family, because you and me are the shade the world needs. Thank you so much for sharing some of your reasons as to why youth or anyone should not commit suicide. Now I will pass it along to Juan Moreno.
Thank you so much to our panelists for being able to make that presentation. And before we move forward, we will be having a 5-minute break shortly. But first, I would like to introduce Julie Phillips, who is representing Support Action for Mental Health. Where are you, Julie? There you are.
Thank you. Thank you again to our panel for sharing. We really appreciate having you and just what your willingness to share this evening. So thank you. I just wanted to take a quick moment to share what Supporting Action for Mental Health, what this group is doing here in the Longmont community, and to let you know ways that you can get involved and action that you can take. So this group is a representation of a lot of different community members and groups, including Longmont United Hospital, City of Longmont, and so many other programs that are part of the city, mental health partners, as well as Boulder County Public Health, and a lot of other folks that are involved. And really the goal of this group, and this group's been together probably about a year and a half, almost 2 years, is looking at how, as a Longmont community, we can really support and be talking about mental health in the community, how we can provide resources and education, and how, as a community as a whole, we can be talking about and supporting folks and their mental health. And so we have some opportunities, and specifically some educational ways that you can be involved. And one of those is through Mental Health First Aid, and that is a class that allows the participant, and it's for everybody to take, to really just know how we can support family, friends, neighbors, someone that we meet in the community who might be struggling with their mental health. And how can we support them? How can we direct them to resources? How can we know how to respond if maybe someone's in a crisis situation? So this is a class that we are able to offer for free in Longmont from now through 2018. And so through a grant we have from the Colorado Health Foundation, we are able to provide this. And we're really, really pleased to be able to do that. So we have on the table right outside the door, we have a flyer that you can pick up, as well as another one here that has our information, has the website. But this is a class both looking at mental health for adults as well as mental health for young people. And so we encourage you to check that out if you want to take that class. As I said, it's free of charge. It's typically cost to take the class, and we're really pleased to be able to offer that. We also want to encourage people to be talking about mental health just in your families, in your neighborhoods. And so we are creating conversation guides to encourage that. And then in September, we're going to be launching a campaign called Let's Talk, and we're going to be doing that county-wide, working with Boulder County Public Health to do that, because we want to encourage everybody to be talking about mental health, and we want our community to be a place where we know that people can talk about that, can say that they need help, can say that they need somebody to come alongside and meet with them in that. So find out how you can help spread the word, find out how you can encourage everybody in our community to be talking about mental health. And if you have any questions about Supporting Action for Mental Health, please feel free to talk to myself. And if I can ask anybody who's a part of our Supporting Action for Mental Health group to raise your hand really quick, because there are several people in this room. So please feel free to talk to any of us afterwards if you want to know more about these different resources and what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Julie. And before we move forward, I would also like to bring up Kyle from the Longmont Youth Family Center, who would also like to say a few words.
I just want to say thank you all very much for coming tonight. I have to follow up on what Julie said. If you get a chance, if you go and look at these dates for Mental Health First Aid, you're going to be blown away by these classes. I've been working with youth in the middle and high school age range for 12, 13 years now, which is a lot. I know all y'all of us, but he's like 18. But I was blown away, and I already know a lot. So I think that, it's free. It's really going to blow your mind how much you don't know and how much you can help. On that note, I also want to recognize all of our other partner organizations who have shown up here tonight. During this brief break, please take a moment and go speak to them, find out what kind of community resources are available here for you. There's a lot of really great folks working to help folks who are suffering from mental illness and suicidality. So that's all I wanted to say. We'll see you in 5.
Okay, do you want to get help? I can, yeah, I think whatever. Okay. Okay, yeah. Awesome job. Yeah, again, where it was, I should just take down the table.
Oh, they got some good books. So your son seems like an amazing person. He's a wonderful person. Really hard to see, but yeah. Trip up next. Just make sure that I give you at least a shot.
That was the least technical difficulties I think I've ever seen.
The least what?
Technical difficulties.
I know.
I don't think that. In my head. No, it's good. I do that to myself all the time. Yeah. It's totally. It's perfect.
Yes. So I just paid for all these people to go to all our staff to go to the escape room tomorrow, and I can't get a refund. Somebody paid.
Actually,
12 to 1, so it's lunch
oh, it could
hour.
be like my lunchtime escape room. I'm not a very good. I've done one before, and all I did was
I paid $28 for someone to go. She told me to stay. I can't go.
You can't go.
She can't.
Oh, she can't go.
I can't get a refund, so I paid
Okay.
for her spot.
If you don't have anyone else.
Okay, I'll text you.
Yeah, well, yeah. Do you have my phone?
No. But I'll be in my office.
Oh, it's probably in my office. Yeah. I'll see you
That would be cool.
Try to do. That would be fun.
If we have space, I'll let you know, but we plan to be there at like 11:25.
Okay.
It starts at
Okay.
11 to Francis.
Oh, 11 to Francis. Okay,
Here's some water.
cool. Ooh, awesome. Thank you.
So, Angelique said she might not be able to come to the escape room tomorrow. And I already paid for that many people, so I'm inviting Claire. Because she and I are going to try to work on doing a Halloween party in the escape room.
Okay, I'm in, you know that, man. I was doing the haunted houses for you. Listen.
Yeah.
We've got a team at the UT.
I done, yeah, done like, the mall. Over 68 scenes and took over 70 actors for 3 days straight. Background checked. We had security, we had radio,
Yeah, so I want to go home. Yeah.
On Sunday. They don't treat me. I feel
Alrighty, everyone, we can go ahead and start taking our seats.
Okay.
I'll see you at church. Yes. Sometime. We're going to New York next week for our family reunion.
Alright, everyone,
Siblings.
again,
And then I have community service after that, so I'll be at
will be starting shortly.
no, we'll give you my purse. Thank you. I need it.
Alrighty, so for this next portion, we're really gearing up for a training to talk about teens who might be going through a rough time. In this portion, we'll discuss strategies and training, and it's based off of ask a question, save a life, and then hopefully we can get the youth to come back up here for a little Q&A, so stay tuned for that one. Alrighty, so everybody gets fully seated. Alrighty, thank you so much. Now, for this portion, I'd really like to introduce Natalie Trombley from Mental Health Partners. Natalie?
Thank you. And first of all, I just want to say that I'm really impressed by the youth today. I really respect the fact that you had the courage to get up here and to talk about a really difficult topic that often no one wants to talk about or even hear about. And that gives me a lot of hope that we have youth today in the communities that are willing to get out there, share their feelings, their concerns, and spark the conversation. Because if we can't do that, then we're going to be sinking in this ongoing problem of suicide in the community. I really appreciated also the statistic that you put up there for us today. And, I just want to start out by saying that this is a really difficult topic. I recognize that. Maybe you're here today because you've been touched by suicide in some way. It's very prevalent, and it's hard to know because most people won't talk about it. So, today I just want to say that we appreciate your coming and supporting this topic and unifying as a community around it. QPR stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer, and it is a very brief training that is focused on giving you some very basic skills around how to ask the question, persuade a person that you think might be at risk for suicide, and referring them on to someone who can support them. So the basic premises: ask the question, save a life. Okay, so bear with me. This is, like I said, a very basic training. We're going to go through the slides. I'm going to give some time in between the different sections for folks to ask questions. But first of all, QPR is not intended to be a form of counseling or treatment. QPR is intended to offer hope through positive action. And so what we're doing today is we're training you the way we train folks at a primary care physician's office, staff at a school. We want to train as many people in the community as possible so that you feel comfortable addressing the problem of suicide if you come across it. So there are a lot of suicide myths and facts out there. Let's start with a few myths. One is that no one can stop a suicide, it's inevitable. And the fact is, if people in a crisis get the help they need, we know that they'll probably never be suicidal again. It's really important to remember. Another myth is confronting a person about suicide will only make them angry and increase the risk of suicide. That's not the case at all. In fact, most people who are suicidal are really hoping that you're going to ask them how they're doing, ask them the question. It's a relief to them. Asking someone directly about suicide lowers anxiety and opens up that communication. That's what we're looking for. Is this about hope? Is this about reaching out to another person? One of our youth today said it really well. It was beautiful. You have to reach out to people. If you have that feeling in your gut, go with it. Ask the question. Only experts can prevent suicide. Well, that's not true. Suicide prevention is everybody's business in the community, and that's why we're here today, because we want you to feel comfortable with approaching someone who you think might be suicidal or who you know is suicidal. Anybody can help prevent a tragedy. More myths and facts: suicidal people keep their plans to themselves. Well, in fact, most suicidal people communicate their intent to suicide days before they actually attempt. Those who talk about suicide don't do it. Well, that's not true. People who talk about suicide are very likely to make an attempt. So don't think that just because they're talking about it, they're getting it out of their system and they're no longer at risk. Once a person decides to complete suicide, there's nothing anyone can do to stop them. Well, suicide is one of the most preventable types of death, and almost any positive action can save a life. A smile, a hand, just showing that you care, that can save somebody's life. And it's absolutely true. So how can you help? You can ask the question. Before we get into asking the question, there are some suicide clues and warning signs. The more clues and signs observed, the greater the risk. So you need to take all signs seriously. Now, the training today is for folks of all ages. It's for youth, it's for adults. But, the signs for a youth might be very different than a sign that you might see for an adult. And it really depends on what the person might be going through in their life. So if you hear that there's some pain in their life, there's something that they're struggling with, don't minimize it. Just because it's not a problem, that would cause pain for you, it doesn't mean that it couldn't create feelings of suicidal thinking for somebody else. You might hear some very direct verbal clues. I've decided to kill myself. I wish I were dead. I'm going to commit suicide. These are all very direct statements that the person is telling you very clearly that they're thinking about taking their life. Some less obvious verbal clues might be, I'm really tired of life and I just can't go on. My family would be better off without me. Who cares if I'm dead anyway? You know, don't turn your head to those clues, because a lot of times there's suicidal thinking right behind them, and the person, you know, for whatever reason isn't comfortable stating outright how they're really feeling. And sometimes people will even say, and I often see this with teenagers, is they say it somewhat jokingly sometimes. And so just because they say it in what seems like a joking way, that is a clue to follow up immediately. Some behaviors that you would see associated with suicidal thinking, other things to pay attention to is that the person, if you know the person has attempted suicide before, if you notice that, you know, they seem to be acquiring a gun, or, you know, moving a weapon somewhere close by, or stalking pills. A lot of folks stalk pills, and I think that also adolescents tend to stalk pills as well. So that's just something to pay attention to. They might have co-occurring mental health issues such as depression, moodiness, hopelessness. Some folks might seem to be putting their affairs in order. You know, adults, they might be putting together a will or giving things away, or you just might notice like a different behavior on their part as far as that goes. Let's see, or sudden interest in, or disinterest in religion. Just some small thing to pay attention to. Also, drug and alcohol abuse, or a period after recovery, is really significant. So if you have someone that maybe has a history of suicide attempts, they've got a lot of things going on in their life that they're struggling with, and they're using alcohol or drugs, you know, that's somebody to check in with. Other situations that may increase the risk for suicide amongst kids and adults. Being fired or from a job or expelled from school, a recent unwanted move, a loss of any major relationship, the death of a spouse or a child or a best friend, especially if it's by suicide, some sudden unexpected loss of freedom or fear of punishment for having done something, anticipated loss of financial security, or fear of becoming a burden to others. A lot of folks in our community who are older have a series of these situational clues that you might want to pay attention to. You know, they often are losing friends, or have lost most of their family. They're losing their financial security. They're having to move to a place that they don't want to move. You know, that's a series of situations that could lead to a person to think about suicide. As well as adolescents, you know, they might have experienced problems at school. Their peer group is not supportive of them. It could be all kinds of things going on in the life of a child or adolescent that you might think they should be able to cope with, but when things pile up, it leads to suicidal thinking pretty quickly. So tips for asking the question. So if you're in doubt and you think it, even in your gut, that somebody is suicidal, don't wait, ask the question. And if the person is reluctant to tell you, keep on, keep asking them. It's important to try to talk to the person alone and not out in public, but you don't always have that opportunity. You know, do the best you can. Just showing that you care and that you're trying to connect is the first step. And allow the person to talk freely. Try not to interrupt them too much, and make sure that they're aware that, you know, you're giving them your full attention. Because if you're looking at your watch, or you're looking around, or you're kind of like your body language says, I'm really uncomfortable with this, they're going to pick up on that, and they're less likely to share how they're feeling with you. And today we did pass out some QPR cards. They're in this little booklet. If you don't have one, there's some more up here. And there's also more information that you can use to support yourself if you have to talk to someone who's suicidal. So remember, how you ask the question is less important than if you ask. So you need to think about how you're posing the question to a person who's potentially suicidal. So there are a few less direct approaches, and you kind of have to, you know what you're comfortable with. You might say, "Oh, have you been unhappy lately?" Or, "You seem unhappy. Is there something going on? I'm worried about you. I'm wondering if there's something that's on your mind or that you're worried about." And you could also say, "You know, you seem so unhappy lately. I'm wondering if you're thinking about taking your life." Another one that a lot of folks might feel comfortable with is, do you ever wish sometimes that you could go to sleep and never wake up? Like a lot of people relate to that. So, you know, that's another less direct approach you could take if you're less comfortable with the absolute direct approach. So some direct approaches. You look pretty miserable. I wonder if you're thinking about suicide. Or are you thinking about killing yourself? Like, that is not going to make somebody, like, you're not going to put the idea in somebody's head if you ask them that question. And that's, you know, that's one of the biggest myths out there. Well, if I ask them, you know, and they're not thinking about it, well, maybe now they'll start thinking about it and they'll go and do it. And that's not the case. People typically feel relief when you ask the direct question. So if you can't ask the question yourself and you're really concerned about someone, go get somebody who can ask that person the question. How to not ask the question. You're not suicidal, are you? Because if you do that, you're going to get the response that the person thinks you're looking for, which is no. So you want to, you want to avoid asking the question in this way. Okay. So before I move on to the Persuade section, any questions about how to ask the question itself, or how to approach a person who you think might be suicidal?
So I'm wondering, you commented on, this is question, persuade, refer, but what if when you ask a person, they tell you, or to a teenager, promise not to tell anyone?
Oh.
So when that person has promised in past experience that they've promised not to tell anyone, then this teenager is faced with the idea of, oh my gosh, I've just promised not to tell anyone. Now what?
Okay. So did everybody hear that, or did they need that repeated? So what happens if you ask a teenager or another teenager, are you feeling suicidal? And they say, yes, but I don't want you to tell anybody. Is that
Right, or they say, I'll tell you, but you have to first promise that you're not going to tell anyone.
right? And so, well, at least, this is a starting point, right? They're willing to tell you. Do we have one of the youth on our panel who might want to take a shot at answering this question? Who was on our panel here who might like to try that? Would you like?
Well, I've personally not had anybody come up to me and say to not ever tell anybody. I do have quite a couple of friends who are suicidal, but if somebody were to come up to you and say, don't tell anybody, you need to tell somebody, obviously.
So it's okay to promise, yes, okay, I'm not going to tell anyone, but you still know in your mind as a teenager that it's okay that I'm going to, even though I promised, because
Yes.
life is better than the alternative.
Yes. You can promise to that person that has told you. Either go to a counselor, or either somebody you trust even bigger, or in worst cases go to their parents, because they need help. So that's probably one of the most important things to do, and not leave it alone, or else the worst can happen.
Okay.
So I agree 100%. I think that if you're faced with that situation, I think what you need to say to somebody, well, if you're, I need to let you know that I appreciate that you're sharing with this with me, and it takes a lot of courage. And, I just want you to know that I'm here to support you, and I'm here to get you help. And, I'm here to walk you through it. But I can't keep it a secret because, it's just one of those things that we need to get you help, and we can figure that out together in a way that, we can do something in a way that helps you feel comfortable around getting help. So thank you. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, how about, I'm not gonna tell on you, but I'm gonna go with you, so you tell them.
Yes.
Take them to the school counselor meeting. Sometimes the parent's part of the problem, you can't tell the parent.
Right, and so you might, the youth, if we're talking about youth, doesn't want their parent to know. I think the first place to start is, well, where can we go to get you help and support? And we'll go from there. And at some point, depending on who you are, what type of caregiver are you in that moment, will sort of depend on where you take it from there. Whether or not you would say, okay, we're going to get you help here, but then most likely we're going to need to involve your parent, and I want to know what's going on with you. It really depends on the situation, but there are many ways to get somebody help, and so getting them to crisis services, or if you're another student, getting them to somebody at the school. But just getting them to somebody who can help connect them with help.
So I have been through that situation before, and I did promise not to call on my friend, but I ended up calling the parents, and she got the help she needed, and she was really mad at me and didn't talk to me for like 3 years. But we have a saying in Boys Closet that it's better to lose someone for a couple months or a couple years than forever. So that's another thing to think about.
Yeah, thank you very much for adding that. Okay. Any other questions about how to ask the question? I hope we all agree that asking the question is where we want to go, in whatever way we feel comfortable, and if we can't, finding somebody who can do that for us. Okay, so the next section of the QPR is Persuade. So how to persuade someone to stay alive? Well, I think the first step is we're going to listen to the problem and give them your full attention. It's so important that you be present. You don't try to rush things along. I mean, if somebody's about to actually hurt themselves, you're probably going to want to call 911 right away. You can't always talk somebody out of it in the moment that it's happening. But otherwise, if it comes up and you have a feeling that they're suicidal, you ask them the question, they affirm that they're feeling that way, ask them some questions. So what's going on with you? Why are you feeling this way? And really listen. And remember, and help the person who's suicidal to remember that suicide isn't the problem. It's the only solution that they think they have to the problem at the moment. And to help them see that there are other possible solutions. And if they can give some time to consider other solutions, that they'll start to feel like moving towards life again. And don't rush to judgment. It's really hard. Whatever feelings you might have or beliefs that you might have about suicide, it's really important that you don't reflect that to the suicidal person, because they might feel judged upon, and they might never even share that information with you. And lastly, offer hope in any form that you can, even if it's just you in that moment walking them through that really difficult time. But if you can elicit from somebody who's suicidal any other potential hope for life that they have. So once you've listened to them, you've supported them, and you feel like they're starting to connect with you, it's a time to move on and ask them if they're willing to let you help them get help. So you could ask them, will you go with me to get help? Or will you let me help you get help? I don't find this last one particularly interesting, and I wish they'd take that off the PowerPoint, which is, we promise not to kill yourself until we found some help. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I don't, I think that they need to wordsmith that a little bit better. So I think you want to get a person to promise not to do anything and seek help with you, and then see how they feel. So your willingness to listen and help can rekindle hope and make all the difference. And that's what it's about, is the hope. Can you convey that you care, that you're concerned? Can you help the person see that there are other options out there? And that doesn't mean you have to go into like convince mode, because that might just sort of take up, let's just say, energy that they don't have in the moment, but you need to somehow convey in a soft, non-overwhelming way that you care and you want to help. So any questions about the persuade piece, how to get somebody who might be reluctant to get help to consider help, and then what to do, where to either bring them or refer them? Any questions about that, about what's available? No. Okay, so we're going to move on to refer. And the refer piece is basically, right, where you're going to go to get them help. And there's some moments where people are tempted, because you're very busy, or you're limited in your time or what you can do in that moment, is to, again, if you feel like you can't get them through this whole process, try to connect them with somebody who can do that, if it's possible. But I wouldn't leave it midstream. Like, take it all the way through, or get somebody who can. So the refer process is that suicidal people often believe they can't be helped. So you might have to do more to get them to get help, or to convince them to take the next step. The best referral involves taking the person directly to someone who can get them help, like to the ER, the crisis center, the emergency room, I said that already, the ER, and or to the school principal. It really depends on where you're at and what the quickest support is. The next best referral is getting a commitment for them to accept help, and then making the arrangements to get help. Sometimes that's calling a hotline. There are hotline numbers here, and there's some crisis cards in the back with a variety of numbers that you can provide to someone so that they can call and talk to a professional. And the third best referral is to give that referral information, and try to get a good faith commitment from them that they're not going to do anything. And it's a good sign that they're willing to accept help, but if you can follow through, that's always the best. And just remember, since almost all efforts to persuade someone to live instead of attempt suicide will be met with agreement and relief. Don't hesitate to get involved or take the lead. It will make a difference. The chances are that person feeling suicidal again will be significantly reduced, if at all, and they're likely to get the help that you're trying to connect them with.
May I ask a question about referrals?
Yes.
On the nifty little card, is Mental Health Partners really at 3180 Airport Road, and is it 24/7?
Yes. Yes to both of those questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for more effective QPR, things that you can say is to encourage a person, look, I really want you to live, I care about you, I'm on your side, we're going to get through this together. Most people in a moment of feeling suicidal, they feel pretty much alone. So having you there and having you say that you'll walk them through it, you'll be there with them through it, is going to be incredibly helpful. Don't downplay that. Even if you're a parent to an adolescent, don't think they don't want me here, they'd rather talk to somebody else. Stay with them, stick with them, even if they seem angry about it. I think ultimately you both get through it, and they'll appreciate the fact that you weren't put off by their anger or their reluctance to speak with you. Get others involved. You can ask the person who else might be of some help to them. So, do they have any best friends? Do they have any siblings, brothers or sisters? Any religious person, a pastor, a priest, or a rabbi? Even their doctor. So, there are lots of folks that might be able to pick up the ball and support them through the next step. And they can likely tell you who that is. One other thing I think is important, and I like the fact that they say join a team here, and I think this is sort of an extension of helping a person in the moment, is just getting involved in community action to support agencies and individuals who are speaking out against suicide and supporting prevention and intervention. And then the last thing here I think is really important. If you can, once you've connected the person to someone who can help them and support them through this crisis, is to follow up with them and see how they're doing. And continue to check in with them for a while, because sometimes this does not resolve overnight. So show them that you still care. It wasn't just a one-time action, and so try to do that either by phone call or a note. But a personal touch, I think, is always taken to heart. So lastly, please remember that when you apply QPR, you plant the seeds of hope, and it's hope that helps prevent suicide. And you'll probably hear that over and over again if you become more involved in activities like this, such as suicide prevention awareness. It's connecting, it's hope, it's reaching out, it's community, and it's having the courage to talk about it, to increase the comfort around such a difficult conversation. The more we talk about it, the more people are going to feel comfortable showing how they feel. Again, I want to go back to these statistics that were put up earlier. And the reality is that everyone's at risk for suicide. You can't really just boil suicide down to one group and say one group is at risk. I think we know that we're all at risk, or we've been at risk, or we've had that thinking at some point in our life, no matter how brief it was, even if we weren't going through a depression, that it's possible for everybody to experience thoughts of suicide. So, even with this minimal training and just talking about it today as a group, I hope that you feel a little bit more comfortable just going out there, and when you run across somebody who you think is really struggling, that you can ask the question, that you can take the risk, even if you're totally off base, to see if they're at risk for suicide in that moment. Okay, so that was it.
Thank you so much for that, Natalie. Now, before we continue with the rest of the evening, I would like to bring back some of the youth who would like to come up here and share a little more on their stories and answer a couple of questions. So if you can come up here again.
Okay, hi, my name is Karina. And first off, I would just like to start by saying that these are some of our personal stories, and we are here representing ourselves and not all of the youth, because everybody does have their own story. I would want to start off by saying that I personally don't have a personal experience with suicide, but I do know that there's, let me sit down. I do know that there is a problem going on in Frederick. Ever since I started in high school, every year I know I've heard of at least one Frederick student who has killed themselves. And that's terrifying. Even though I don't know them personally, it's somebody that is from our generation, you know. And even though I don't know them, you know, that could have been somebody that could have become, I don't know what. They could have become my best friend. They could have become somebody very important in my life. And to know that they are not here anymore, that's truly sad. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Jasmine, and I have never had any suicidal thoughts or tried to commit suicide. But I did have a friend, and I would like to share her story. She started off by just being at school, always working hard in her schoolwork, things like that. There was this guy that really liked her, and she denied it. She she just wanted to be friends. So he got really upset. So he started being really rude. He kept telling her to kill herself multiple times, in person, through message. He told his friends to tell her, so she actually thought about it, and she tried to, and on the other hand, more family problems started to come up, so she really wanted to, until I told one of the youth staff members, which talked to her and got her a therapist, which now she usually goes. She is better than she was a couple of months ago. I think us as a community should really pay attention to this, because, well, us as teens, ending our life this fast isn't a good thing. We still have more years to go. We still don't have experienced most of these things that adults have, and the problems come and go, but if you commit suicide, you will never be able to come back. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Emma, and I never tried or attempted to do anything to myself. I never tried to kill myself, but I've had a friend that I couldn't save. I'm not gonna say the name, but she was a really good friend of mine. I tried to save her. I hung out with her for a long time, for many years. But and I tried to get her help. She had a therapist, and but one night she got a belt and hung herself. It's hard knowing that you have someone and the next day they're just gone. Knowing that you thought they were happy, but they really weren't. You just know you can always try. Don't give up on a person that wants to kill himself. Because every person has a purpose, and every person deserves to live, no matter what.
I haven't think about committing suicide, but I got to know a staff member from my middle school that I went to that committed suicide. He went to war, to the Iraq war. He was a soldier. So, and I always knew that soldiers when they come back from war, they always like they don't know how to feel like come back to the community, how to join again with their families because the experience have had a big effect on them. So I got to know this staff member, and we made a tribute to him when I was in band. We played music for him, but something that I get to see like mostly everywhere is that I see people like lonely, and that's when like people don't talk to those people like they feel, and that's when people feel lonely, and that happen like at school and like in places, and I get to see like like restaurants. I see people like lonely. They don't get to talk to anybody. So something that I really like want to see like most for everyone to do is that just to talk to those people that they are not like talking to, like probably they are lonely. Like always talk to if you are at school, like talk to that kid that probably like kids don't talk to or don't get near or don't get and like close to him. Talk to everyone because and probably is different from you. Always try to like communicate with everybody, no matter what, how different they can be.
Thank you so much for sharing. You can go ahead and take your seat. Thank you so much. Now I would like to introduce Elizabeth Willifer from Mental Health Partners and Julie Phillips from the City of Longmont.
I just want to thank everybody again for coming tonight. This is a topic that we don't usually gather around for an informal discussion in a way that we are doing tonight. I'm also very thankful that Natalie Trombley came to provide that free training for all of us as well, and for the youth who shared such vulnerable stories about their lives. I think most likely all of us have been touched by suicide in one way or another, which is why we would come out tonight and get together to learn more about how we can support each other. And working for Mental Health Partners, I feel very empowered, knowing that we have resources in the community here and all over Boulder County for people who really need something, for people who really need an immediate resource. So I just want to point out, I don't think anyone's pointed out yet, the cards that were on all of your chairs. These are crisis cards. The number on the front of the card, I would like to encourage you to just put into your cell phone right now if you can. It is the Colorado Crisis Line. It's always open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. This card is perfect size for your wallet or a friend's wallet if you may need it at some point. I myself found a card like this at a time in my life that was really dark, and I don't really know what I would have done if I hadn't had that phone number accessible to me. So the cards are bilingual, which is wonderful, and it also has the address of our crisis walk-in center that we talked about earlier at 3180 Airport Road. So please take a closer look at these, put the numbers in your cell phone so that then you can have this card available to give to somebody in need. And Julie's going to share a little bit more about local resources in the area as well.
There's one other flyer that we have on the table, or out there, that our Supporting Action for Mental Health group has put together just over the last few months. And it's looking at mental health resources kind of on three different levels. And so you can see it's even color-coded, blue and yellow and red, kind of thinking about blue being resources that are available in the community during times that aren't maybe an immediate crisis, but just knowing that there are lots of different resources available in the community. The yellow being kind of crisis, but not read as that real immediate, very, life-threatening crisis. So thinking about that and kind of that continuum, and just thinking about what are the different types of resources that we have. So this is available in the back, and we can also share it with you electronically, so if you know other people you want to share that with, just let me know. I'm happy to email that to you. I just want you to know that that's also available and on the table out there, just as one of the main goals.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Julie. To conclude our evening, I would like to introduce 3 therapists, 2 from the Longmont Youth and Family Center, and Jaime Rico and Olga Bernal. Please raise your hand. And we are also bringing Jean Rosmani from Mental Health Partners. Thank you so much.
I guess I've already been introduced. I'm Jean Rossmarin from Mental Health Partners, and we are happy to provide resources. I'm happy to answer questions if people have some kind of individual questions they want to ask after this, and I'm imagining everybody else is also available for that.
So my name is Olga Bermudez. I'm a counselor at Children, Youth, and Families. We provide counseling services for youth, mostly youth and families. We're not a crisis or emergency center, so that would be Mental Health Partners. But since we work with youth, we can facilitate and coordinate some services, and we provide counseling services free of cost. We also have so many other programs that can help, and we help the youth just to connect with after-school activities, with homework help, or with some leadership groups. So just keep in mind, we are a resource in the community, but we are not 24/7 hours at the center.
As Olga was saying, we are not 24 hours center, guys. Okay. It's a very difficult topic to discuss, right? I know a lot of you are, kind of just trying to take this in. I just want to give a hand to our youth. And I also want to offer, the youth center services, like Olga was saying. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Okay, that's what we're there for. And if you don't know what the answer is, we'll try to find it for you, or we'll try to get you connected with the right resources. Okay. Anybody have questions?
Questions, anybody?
Any questions for Natalie?
While you're here. So I know a lot of it was due to this 13 Reasons Why kind of sparked this dialogue. I see that's a really popular, media right now. What are other media sources, and maybe this is for youth or anyone else that really knows this, that counteract that and sort of support a more positive or more healthy look at suicide, whether that's music, whether that's movies, TV, YouTube, wherever? Like, where do we go to find those resources that really connect with youth? Because, 13 Reasons Why, good production value, it's on Netflix, easily accessible. Like, what are the other mediums that, you can gear kids towards if that's really all they know about suicide?
But I think that, the youth center definitely, since we work with youth, we have several options for the kids. And part of that is just trying to show them there are other alternatives, there are other ways for them just to connect with healthy adults, to ask some questions at the same time that they can have fun. It's free of cost, now during the summer, so we have been running different programs during the morning and from noon to 5 o'clock. But once we go into the school year, we will have the after-school program, some leadership groups. So what we like is just for the youth to stay engaged, and that way they will have some healthy adults around that they can ask questions. They can, even if they don't ask the question, but we have a situation this summer where a young lady disclosed to one of their friends that she was having some suicidal thoughts. So that friend came upstairs to the center, look for one of the therapists, for one of us, and she said, I need some help, my friend is telling me this, what should I do? So we went and intervened right away. So that's being surrounded by healthy adults, being surrounded by healthy kids, that's going to help. And keeping them engaged, keeping them with some available resources that can help them.
And I wonder if anybody in the audience has any answers to that question.
Yeah, like even Claire, do you know some good books or literature in YA that would be good?
Yeah, so I do
There's some
have,
over here.
I'm Claire, I'm the teen librarian here at Longmont Public Library. I've put together a few resources, nonfiction and fiction, but a lot of YA fiction deals with mental illness in various ways. I find it very interesting that 13 Reasons Why came out over 10 years ago, and only since it kind of entered into the Netflix world has it really become a topic of discussion. But there are a lot of books that offer more hope, different perspectives, ways to, I think it's really, myself personally, I appreciate reading about tough topics and learning how to grapple with them in fiction to help me in real life. So we have lots of resources in the library we've put together. I have these little pamphlets where we've put together a reading list of fiction and nonfiction. Anyone's welcome to take those. You're welcome to come see me anytime to talk one-on-one about potential good resources for books. I can't really think of any off the top of my head, like TV shows that offer.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think when kids are little, if you sit there and watch TV with them, then sometimes you can say, well, he's really manipulating that person, or this is going on, and you see how they're treating them. That's not the right way to treat people. Something, and as the kid gets older, then they get used to you sitting there making your comments and everything, and just to stay involved. And if that program comes on and they want to watch it with them, and say, well, look, what she's doing isn't really getting her anywhere, but that's not how it is in real life, and you don't want to think of real life that way. And just stay involved, stay involved all the way. Even sometimes I've watched stuff with my grandkids that, the other adults are going, well, that's what he's working for. I said, I know, but I want to talk to her about it. So just to keep the communication going with the kids when they're growing up.
So I just want to bring up that I'm with NAMI, and we have some wonderful classes that are free, and they're resources really for parents or even spouses, but we're talking about teenagers here mostly. We have a class that's 6 weeks, once a week, and being myself a parent with a child with mental illness, it really helped me communicate better with my child. Would you agree? And it was a great way for me as a parent to be able to figure out how to communicate and mostly to feel that I was not alone. Because we feel so lonely, I think. We feel like we're the only person because people don't generally talk about it. So if you're interested, I have flyers, and we would love to have people sign up for these classes.
It really takes courage to talk about suicide.
It does.
I mean, so people are like really courageous being here, talking about suicide. And even I think just coming to an event and saying, I'm willing to be in an event about suicide, I think it's courageous.
And our classes are not just about suicide, it's about mental illness in general.
Yeah, which is
to
great.
avoid suicide, obviously.
There are several of us here that represent INME, and INME is the Interfaith Network for Mental Illness, and we help faith communities try to be inclusive and understanding and supportive of people who have mental health challenges. And we help them start spiritual support groups or start a mental health ministry if they don't have them. We're very aware that lots of churches don't have a mental health ministry or don't necessarily talk about and make it discussable things about mental health and about mental illness and about suicide. So I think a suggestion would be for anybody who's part of or can touch into a faith community to ask whether or not they have a mental health ministry, because it might be a place to get support. And then I also have a question of curiosity for the youth who were on the panel, whether any of you might have turned to a faith community and what your experience was when you did so.
I would like to suggest, what if we just continue the communication, and the kids, the youth have been working really hard, and so what if we just give them a break and just continue the conversation with us? Yeah.
I just had one for Natalie.
So you trained us, you gave us this little rundown on this. Were there specific credentials that you needed to do that? So I facilitate the GSA groups at Frederick High School myself, so I'm wondering how I would be able to do that myself as far as present it to that GSA group.
Sure, so if you're interested in becoming a trainer so that you can train others, the QPR Institute, just get online, qpr.com. They'll walk you through that, but yes, you could do that. You could go through the training so that you can train others. And it's really, you know, it's, as you see, it's a real basic training. It's just so that we can get the word out to as many people as possible of varying ages to open up the conversation and support folks who might be experiencing suicide. So yeah, you can, anybody in this room can go to the QPR Institute and get trained to train others. Yes, they also have youth QPR, which is incredibly similar to this, which is more general.
All right, guys. So, Patricio, I forgot to ask for the mic, so I could also try to answer your question. As you can see, you know, there's a lot of knowledge in this room. You know, a lot of people who are trying to help, right? When it comes to trying to, you know, just find ways to support youth who are struggling or looking at like social media or getting things off of Netflix that might try to instill some ideas and how do we battle that, right? That's what you were asking. So I think the first piece is really trying to help them find ways of really educating themselves when it comes to information that they're receiving through social media, through Netflix, and say, okay, so maybe that's not what I should believe in, right? Because you know what, there are people that care about me, right? There are adults that care about me, family, friends, right? So it's through trainings like this and through information that is actually helpful and supportive that we can continue to support youth, right? I also wanted to thank, before I forget as well, I wanted to thank Karen and Kyle, as well as all the partnering agencies, mental health partners, Longmont Public Library. It looks like we have Supporting Action for Mental Health, Longmont, Colorado, and Longmont United Hospital. Thank you guys for putting this together. And I just wanted to do that now before I forget later on today, okay? All right.
Right, thank you.